Snowball, I think it should be okay.
You sound great. Hey everybody, welcome back to another Plugin Tut live stream. Plugin Tut, your home for handcrafted WordPress plugin tutorials. You follow the other podcast. I do another podcast called the Matt Report. This actually might air. The audio version might actually air over on Matt Report at some point once I get everything in order. I have a special guest today, Spencer Forman. Spencer, I gotta admit, I might call you Spencer Borden because there is a famous marina where I live called Spencer Borden Marina, and it's there's like a bar down there, so it's like everyone is always like, hey, we're going to Spencer Borden, and it's just like this thing that just triggers. But Spencer Forman, welcome to the program, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Matt. You and I know each other from other places, and you've never botched my name so far.
No, so. I won't call you Uncle Spencer. And I think that's your other nickname, right? Uncle Spencer.
Something like that, right?
Founder of LaunchFlows. Spencer, why don't you tell folks who don't know you, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate being on the show. Big fan of yours as well and everything you've been doing over the years. I am really involved in two things. LaunchFlows is a plugin, but I'm also at WP Launchify, which is my main consultancy business. I started in WordPress almost at the very beginning with all the other geezers and old timers. So I like to say that I've seen this thing grow from sort of a hippie granola community into a real platform. And along the way, I've been really lucky to help probably 30,000 plus people, either as clients or students or whatever, in our various training programs for freelancers. But now the focus is really today on no code, no design, snap together a solution for membership, marketing automation, e-commerce, and so forth. And so I really focus my attention on working with some of the leading authors, as well as being, I like to say, an author myself, so that we have a solution ready to go. And when I consult with people, it's really on the solution of, look, instead of me handing you a gift, a sandwich that you eat and don't know how I made it, instead we talk to you for free. Sometimes we have a 1-hour session. Sometimes we do ongoing care, but it's all about just showing you and teaching you how to snap it together yourself, Mr. Miyagi style. And the neat thing about that is, instead of it being harder, it's easier. But the part that people are challenged by all the time, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is WordPress is kind of like the Home Depot. If you walk in there and you're not a contractor, you just go, whoa, there's 10,000 nuts and bolts, and what do I do? And you're going to make a mistake, or you're going to have what I call shiny ball syndrome, which is, look at that, look. So what we try to do is say, hey, 4 key plugins, maybe 3 extra plugins, you can rock and roll. And now that's the stack. What you do with the stack is this sort of range from a ballerina free site to a billionaire business. It doesn't need a new thing. Just like if you get one of these iPhone thingies, you can do it for free for fun, or you can make a huge business on it. And that's where that's where we've arrived. And I think that's my goal, is not to try to be a Russell Brunson character as a marketing, look at what you can sell and make and so forth, but literally what you can create with a very limited set of stuff. And then if you have a good business idea, well, here you go. There's the factory.
Was the consultancy something, the WP Launchify, how did you get into that? Like, what were the steps that, or the milestones that you reached that said, you know what, I've really hyper focused in on these packages in this consulting sort of approach? Did you start out like, I'll say, everybody else, where it was just, hey, we're just going to build websites, and then you sort of stumbled and fumbled and found your way to this finite service offering? How did it come about?
That's a great question. So I think the fairest answer is to say that the things I offered are always consistent, but they grew with the maturity of the WordPress platform. It started out around 2006, and I've been a pilot since I was a kid, and I love aviation. And back then there was a social network called Ning, which was not on WordPress, and it was Silicon Valley funded, $100 million Mark Andreessen thing. They allowed you to build a network for anything. Anyway, another pilot friend of mine and I went in there, and we, without going into that drama, we had a great amount of success with using their freemium service. And as a result of that and the drama, we really built up a following and a network. And I got really excited because I'd been always building businesses since a kid. But in Chicago, if you build a business or a hot dog stand, you don't give away the hot dogs for free. You'd be out of business in it. So I was able to just bring a sort of a Midwest mindset of, look, make things people want, they'll pay you for them, and you can have a business from square one, bootstrap style, not freemium style. When WordPress became mature enough to actually do a little more things, I started in the social network space there. So with Triple J's BB Press and Boone Gorgas had Buddy Press, that was the social networking field where I was already an expert at. So I came in and started applying my knowledge there into multi-site. And as time went on, it became very quick in the early years, 6, 7, 8, 9, that this was going to be something more than just a blogging platform. And so what I figured was, look, there's a ton of business owners who are my peers that need websites, but you were at the time having to pay $100,000 to an agency. And I said, that's absurd. I can teach regular people who are kind of handy how to make bootstrapped HTML, PHP type websites with the basics that we had at WordPress, and then sell that service for a couple $1,000 per site. So I found somebody who was like-minded, Dinas Graveris at First Web Designer. I brought him the idea of, look, I may be twice your age, but I got twice your experience, and let's make a new branch of this business, because he had a big audience at the time of 3-4 million visitors a month to First Web Designer. And we started teaching First Web Designer visitors at 1WD-TV how to make money with WordPress, building sites. That went on to about 2014 when the page builder revolution kicked in. And as soon as it became clear that the page builders were not only not going away, but that was the future, well, it made no sense to teach people how to make, bootstrap websites and all the coding things and so forth. Furthermore, I did learn a valuable lesson. Even though 1WD succeeded at really helping a lot of people with their business mindset, entrepreneurialism, as a business owner, consultant, it's a huge difference between teaching somebody how to create a mechanical outcome that is factually objective, tangibly the same every time, right? Here's the plugins that go together to make this system. That is very different than I'm going to teach you how to be entrepreneurial and go make money-making relationships with people where you sell and you learn how to be a marketer. That is a completely different skill set, very hard to succeed at if you don't really want to try it, or you're not born with a desire to do that kind of thing. So by shifting attention away after 2014 to what was now becoming potentially true, which was, you can now use a couple key components with an outside CRM and make a business that's functional. Well, the magic or secret sauce was really Jack Arturo's plugin, and Jack, and all of us love Jack, WP Fusion. My protege in the business, Luke, pointed out that there's this plugin that now connects that CRM to this stack of other plugins. And suddenly the lights went off in my head. I contacted Jack immediately. I said, look, I got this vision of what your plugin is going to do. And maybe he had the same vision or maybe he disagreed, but we immediately hit it off and started collaborating, all due to his great plugin and effort, on making this the de facto tool that allowed you to do everything you wanted to in WordPress, just like you could have done on a previous platform like Infusionsoft or HubSpot or one of those. Remember back in the day, they used to charge $2,500 just for the privilege of being able to, start using their software.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, that's how I got to where I'm at. And as far as the consultancy, the biggest change was, instead of giving people a ready-to-go solution, where we used to be like, okay, you need a website, here you go, it's $2,500. And they would go, too much mustard on the sandwich, or I love the sandwich, how did you make this? I don't know how to use it. Instead, we found that by being consultative and sticking with a very limited set of components, we can give somebody a Lego experience. It's the same foundation no matter what you want to build, but because they all snap together and because the documentation and the authors are all very supportive, I can have a just conversational consultation with you to explain, this is why we connect this to that in this order, but there's no coding anymore, no design. I mean, pick your design. It's just, and that's where we find ourselves today. That the amount of people who need that kind of service is incredible, because most people now have to get their business online, especially with the pandemic.
One last business question, just because I just can't get it out of me. Of course, with my other podcast, that's all I talk about is business stuff. And then we'll dive into LaunchFlows and maybe even show us a demo of some of the cool features about it.
Sure.
Here's what I love about both of your websites is the click to schedule a phone call because
Right.
there are so few people that I meet in the WordPress world, even in the agency world, where it's just like immediate, like, hey, let's book a call. Let's just talk about what you have.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of all of these, like, look what you could do with a multi-step gravity form, and you can get people qualified if you feel okay. I get it. There's definitely a case to be had there,
Yeah.
but let's just jump straight into having this discussion. Why did you do this? Like, I mean, I know why, but tell us why this is so important to you.
Yeah. I mean, I love that you picked up on that. And everybody has their own version of how to do business. And I love the fact that we live in a world where, again, I'm a big fan of some of the major marketers today, like a Russell Brunson, who doesn't do anything with WordPress, but you could take the exact same strategies and just use the WordPress stack instead of ClickFunnels. So what I've found in my entire life is that there's a couple axioms, a couple truisms that are just, they never go away. And again, I'm 53. I tell people I'm 72. I like to see the reaction. Some people think I'm younger. I appreciate that. But the point is, I've been through, let's say, 4 generations, 4 decades of change. And it's so true, like it was when I was 10 years old. Rule 1, find a pain that you have and see if other people have it. Because then you can learn how to solve your pain. And when you learn how to solve it, you can build some kind of a solution for it that you can then explain and share to other people, and that they will likely buy. So it always starts with find the pain. And if you have that pain, the next thing to understand is that most people are not interested in buying your solution, or they're not buying the things that you're actually offering them, it seems, on paper. Instead, what they're buying is the outcome, which is the removal of their pain. And the only way to make people feel good about that is to talk to them just like in a regular relationship, whether it's dating or your friends or family. It's to say, hey, I understand that you might have a similar pain. Explain to me what you're feeling. Tell me what you're going through. Now, here's what's interesting about that. You can apply this to lots of other businesses. And I, for example, have heard this before. So I'm borrowing liberally from people like Seth Godin, who has written about this in his books as well. Why does somebody buy a powered screwdriver? It's, the whole to put a picture frame on the wall. And why is a picture frame? To remind them that they have a family and they're working so hard. So is that if you have a situation where somebody needs something, it is actually less time and effort for me to go and personally offer myself up for free phone calls into a community, let's say a plugin author like Jax, or into the Facebook groups, or into wherever, where I say, look, I've got 15 years of being an expert here. Tell me what's wrong. I'll give you free information. Because what inevitably happens is that lowers all of the barriers, and that builds trust, and it puts anybody really into a position of being the de facto expert. Because as long as you just know 1 inch more than the person who's asking, you now are the potential rescuer to get them out of what's really their problem, which is they're stuck, they're wasting time, they're losing money. And that's really what's happened here, is that I have found that I invest quite a bit of time, usually 4 days a week, up to 6 calls a day, which isn't really that big a deal, of talking to people, learning about them and their business, which I actually enjoy. I enjoy people. I would say more than half of the people, well, first of all, almost everybody's appreciative that, like, you're the first person that's ever let me call and talk to them. But of those people to call, more than half of them end up becoming paid clients. And so if you think about Facebook ads or Instagram or YouTube or something, like, you could spend thousands of bucks with no result. Whereas with me, yeah, I'm investing my money into my time, into free phone calls, and to becoming an expert at certain things. But the payoff is I sit here in my house now with my kids running around all the time, and I don't have to wear a suit anymore. So works out.
That's great. I think that's the thing. Like, a lot of people in the WordPress space, and maybe even in online business, a lot of people feel like, hey, maybe the phone doesn't scale. Maybe these meetings, they don't scale. Everybody's talking about scale and automation, and we apparently just talked about automation too and how great it is. But there are some tremendous benefits, and one of them, I think, as you highlighted, is certainly talking to the customer and getting that direct feedback. Right? We always say, talk to your customers, get feedback. So figure out what they want solved. And then everybody's like, well, how do I do that? Well, you talk to them on the phone. That's
Yeah,
how,
you bring up a point which is worthy of mentioning. The only way to succeed at a business that, let's call it high touch, right? You need to have something that's a deliverable that is worth at least as much as the time you had to spend to get the customer and the time you'll spend with the customer. So if I dollar cost average it, all of the phone calls, I need to have a consultancy offering that is going to at least pay me back for all that I've invested. Otherwise, it's a net loss, which would be foolish. So if you were selling a $12 widget or something like that, that's not going to scale by doing phone calls. There are businesses that are just high volume, low profit margin. In my case, I do borrow liberally from, let's say, my old mentors of marketing, the Billy Mays and the Joe Sugarmans and stuff. But like even Russell Brunson, value ladder can start with free, then a tripwire, then your first product, upsell, and so forth. And that's how I've done it through 1WD and LaunchFlows and WP Launchify, is that the payoff for me is always that they're related services, they're related purposes. So even if I'm just giving you free advice today, that's an entree to you coming back to me later to buy something related.
I have to mute myself because, of course, the neighbor started chainsawing a tree in the middle of a live stream.
A high rise being built next to my house.
Let's dive into LaunchFlows. Customize WooCommerce checkouts with Elementor, drag and drop, simple, no coding required. This is e-commerce, obviously, a hot market, right? It's a no-brainer. But the products and the businesses that I've followed from indie businesses all the way to venture-backed businesses, like that, the experiences of e-commerce, right? Fine-tuning the experience of WooCommerce is a market unto itself, right? I mean, I've seen people with, capturing emails and sending abandoned carts, and that's a whole business. Then there's upsells like along the way that people can do. There's, building out the checkouts and customizing the checkouts, like what your product does. Hot market. Tell us all about it. Like why this product and where's it going?
What's interesting is that and again, I love the fact you're very perceptive. Not that I didn't think that originally, but like the questions you're asking are really on point, which is to say, the maturity of the WordPress space has meant that there's a couple standout plugins. And I always say to customers or potential customers when they're calling, I say, look, along the way, this hippie granola community had lots of peace and love and potluck dinners and bring your, thing you made this afternoon. But in reality, if you're going to run a business, be reliable, you're going to have to marry one plugin or two plugins to be foundational. And in the past, to do membership or things related to client onboarding, you would buy one of several different plugins, many of which still exist and they're perfectly fine for what they were originally intended. But the reality is that you need a transactional engine. And there really is no finer transactional engine than WooCommerce. It is owned by Automatic. It has one of the most amazing diverse teams of developers led by Mike Jolly. The code is incredibly tight and so well refined. I mean, it's being improved all the time. This is the tool, the engine that is going to be used for so many things that don't actually even have to end up being a sale. This is what people don't necessarily understand. So WooCommerce can give you an onboarding mechanism with a gorgeous login and my account dashboard, the ability to create a user instantly from a free transaction, the ability to connect to tons, literally thousands upon thousands of other services and plugins. So if you were going to marry one plugin, and it's free, by the way, marry WooCommerce. Now, this pains my heart because there's a conversation when I'm helping customers from WP Fusion and so forth. There are two other fairly well-known e-commerce type transactional things. EDD, which is written by Pippin Williamson originally, which is tremendous for what it does. And then there's an argument for things like ThriveCart, which is a wild card. ThriveCart tries to do the things that we do differently now and directly with WooCommerce, where it's very specialized for sales funnels. EDD has evolved into a de facto standard for anybody who sells software and needs the specialized licensing, although that's also been sort of taken up by other methods. That would be the only reason I would recommend EDD, is if you're selling some kind of software or licensing thing. WooCommerce as the starting point now allows you to do the things that these other 4 or 5 plugins connect into that I'm referring to. You could do marketing automation. You can do your LMS with, let's say, learning management and have coursework that you just buy or get something for free. Boom, you're auto-enrolled. You can do other things that follow. For example, very customized things like LaunchFlows does, upsells, downsells, cross-sells, and so forth, and checkout experiences. And you can do things that follow with like partners, affiliate or partnership or branding deals. All of that stuff then also ties in brilliantly with the accessories like a plugin service, called Metoric, which will give you a CRM-like dashboard. And so if you use this very specific stack, all based really on top of WordPress and WooCommerce, the world is your oyster. Versus I'm going to be, building my own special Frankenstein monster.
Do you have any? I mean, we've talked about on other shows before about and I'm trying to get away from this business discussion here. I just can't. The gorilla, the 50,000-pound gorilla in the room that is Automatic and Jetpack and Automatic owning WooCommerce.
Right.
What are the fears, if any, of them rolling out feature sets of LaunchFlows, and saying, "Hey, Jetpack, you can now do this with WooCommerce." What are the fears there, or maybe you think that it's so niche that they're probably not going to go in this direction?
No, ironically, that would be the best thing that ever happened to me personally, and here's why. So one of the things that you have to accept, and I know you're in this field, so you understand this, but the listeners maybe have thought about this, maybe not. If you've been around long enough, you've heard this and you accept it. But many new people, and we mentioned somebody earlier before the show that doesn't seem to understand this. Open source software is like an open relationship. Okay, you have to accept that you are not selling the code. Anybody can see and beg and borrow and steal and use and whatever. And in fact, WooCommerce, ironically, was a fork of the GigoShop plugin. And then they doubled down and bought away all of the team and their talent to help with WooCommerce. So I am not for 1 second worried about anybody taking the features. Here's why. Even though LaunchFlows is my entree to this value ladder of other things I offer, the true value always for me ends up being my consultancy knowledge and the personal relationship. And so if it were true, let's say that WooCommerce adopted and forked LaunchFlows, it's not going to happen that way, but let's say they just put the features in there. Fantastic. Why? Because LaunchFlows sells for a few $100. Okay. My consultancy is much more than that and well worth the result. But they've just taken the burden. Now there's going to be millions of people looking for somebody to help me with the factory that came right out of WooCommerce box. You see, and that's the part that I find ironic when there are people in this community, many of whom I've had direct relationships with or other contact with. It always troubles me when they think that they're selling the software. What we're selling is the service and support, the feature updates being automatic, and the relationship directly with the customers. And in many cases, there's plugins that I know of. I can say this, like Chris and Thomas produced one of those amazing, learning management systems, Lifter LMS. That's free. It's free. People pay for their ultimate bundle, I think, because whether they use all the services or not, they want to support what's happening there because that's the relationship. So from a business standpoint, I don't know what will happen, but it would make it nice for me, and I talk about it on some of the other shows that we visit together, that I see the direction of the WooCommerce team being completely uninterested in doing that. And I also see Automatic being completely distracted by things outside of the plugin space. So what I'm taking on as my goal, and as I have a bet with you and everyone on the show, is that I'm trying to make this year the year that we put together this stack and make the stack with WooCommerce at the base, the de facto starter Lego kit that everybody uses for whatever they want to build. Because if they do this, they will save themselves a lot of misery. And ironically, everything other than LaunchFlows, which is free to use for the first week, everything else is free. Everybody else has a free version of the plugin. So for $225 with the coupon, you could have what ClickFunnels tries to offer for $3,600, and it's better.
Do you have a particular customers that is using this more than another? So is it a lot of physical product sellers or membership type sellers, digital product sellers? Do you find that a certain segment uses LaunchFlows more than the other?
Yeah, I love these questions because these really do come to the heart of it. We see that more than ever, People are using it for membership, and they're using it for e-commerce related stuff, because now Russell Brunson was principal in making this idea of funnels. Instead of people always going to a shop that, find it on the shelf in the grid of stuff and click the button and click to add its cart and then click to checkout and then click. We've learned that people have zero attention span. So you have to literally go, here's what you want. And by offering things that way, it really doesn't matter if it's a consultant for time, a product that you ship, or a service or an online software. It's really the same idea of, we find that it's somebody that is going to sell or give away something that the end user needs to sign up for themselves, versus there's an alternative use, but it's not as useful, where if you're purely like a high ticket selling thing, many times you'll onboard your client on the back end of your own computer. You don't need the whole interface of WooCommerce and sales and that sort of thing. But
do you find that LaunchFlows is a good product for a consultant to onboard their customers with?
Yeah, and for charities too, because one of the things, there's a really outstanding WordPress plugin, Gift WP. It is the de facto standard if you need high-end gift and donations, but it's like a Sherman tank of features and weight when some people need a butterfly net or a little pea shooter. We found that for many of our clients, the solution LaunchFlows offers is amazing. It's just a regular WooCommerce product, but because of LaunchFlows, we have what we call name your price, name your donation. You can literally just predefine a bunch of buttons or a form. You just put in the total number you want, and boom, you get paid instantly. I'll be happy to demonstrate that. This product is outstanding if you need reporting and tax things and notifications and follow-ups. It's incredible. They actually are also, they use WP Fusion and marketing automation, and it's a great team, a two-man team there. So that is the plugin I recommend to everybody, but like WordPress allows, there are lots of different flavors and scales that you can use. So if you just needed a pea shooter solution, let's say you're a freelancer. With WP Launchify, clients usually buy a standard block of something, but sometimes I'm like, look, you need to pay me. Here's what you do. With LaunchFlows, you just make a free product, you have a general checkout, and you just literally have the URL string says, and donation equals. And the number they type in the URL or you type into the form or whatever instantly pays you. That's like an immediate way to get credit card payments, no cost, no overhead, no complication, no time, and so forth.
Sorry, I have to keep muting myself. Yeah, if we could show, as we're getting closer to the half-hour mark, if we could show, one killer feature or two killer features, give people a taste of what the plugin does. I've actually never had anybody share their screen on StreamYard, so I don't even know how that's going to work. I think if you look for,
what's going to have to happen is it's going to be, I'm going to have to share it, I think, and then go to that window, and then you'll have to just tell me when you're done, and I'll go back, because I think I'll lose the controls because I'm on a single monitor here. But
okay,
we can try.
Yeah, let's see what it says. You click share your screen, add your screen, and then I think I have to authorize it. I should have thought of this before.
It says here, Chrome has a bug that can cause screen sharing to crash on Windows 10. It's pretty rare, but if it happens, call your mommy, and then
yeah, I get that.
All right, let's see if it crashes. I guess we'll just connect again, right? So,
yeah.
All right, let's see. Okay, I think it's letting me share essentially my entire screen, which I'm going to do, and then you'll see us, and then I'll switch over. Okay.
Very good. For those of you watching, if you have any questions,
can you still hear me? By the way.
I can still hear you. Yep.
Right, so let's go to incognito and tell me, does that look better now?
That looks great.
All right. So what we've done to make this easy is all of the various plugins that use the stack. And by the way, for those who are curious, there's a webinar that I did, and I hope this is okay because it's our friend John. But this webinar link will actually give somebody a really quick flavor, and there's a stack of slides of what you can do with some of these 7 or so key plugins. So this is definitely something to check out if you wanted to get a quick follow-up of what we were just talking about. In terms of getting started, we've also got this free trial, right? So this makes it easy for anybody to experience what we're talking about, including, as you'll see, the ability to just launch a demo. So I'm the admin, so I can do a little shortcut, but for anybody, just use your real email because it'll send you credentials, right? So let's do, why I'll make up a name like Steven Tyler. Okay, so you can just do a quick, really difficult math problem, and then for normal people, it'll send them an email. I think that is -6. And okay, so now we've basically got a backend set up. And what this is a normal WordPress site set up so you can experience, watch some videos if you want, or just experience both front and back end of what LaunchFlows can do. And we can run through a couple little tests here. So we've got example 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, instead of looking like a normal WooCommerce site, right? Here's an array of features spread out into different, very common scenarios. And I'll mention some of the features and show you a little bit. I was just talking to you about how easy it is to get paid now with just WooCommerce, LaunchFlows, Stripe, or whatever payment gateway you want. You can immediately have a freelance pay me system, right? Either predefined stuff that people can pay you, like here's $75, takes you to, none of this looks like a WooCommerce, right? That's because it's just an Elementor layout, right? Multi-step if you want. I'll go back to this in a second, but let's say they change their mind. Instead of doing a fixed amount, I want to pay you $65.23. Click, boom. Now I go and say, it's John Doe, and I can even go ahead and add in, this is for blah, blah, blah reason, a custom field. I can go to payment, and the rest is sort of history. I won't do the checkout now, but when it's done, it will take you to a custom thank you page, which you can, again, not do with WooCommerce. WooCommerce only gives you that sort of like verbiage over the top that says you just did a transaction. Here, after I do the last one, I'll show you, it'll take you to a custom thank you page. And it works with any gateway, any plugins in WooCommerce. The one thing that LaunchFlows really made a big deal about, because of where the origin of this was, is that we do not mess or interfere with the normal WooCommerce behaviors. We add to them, but we don't hijack them or change them. And that's very different than other plugins in this space who do interfere with normal WooCommerce behavior, which causes a lot of consequences. Example 2 is something that's very popular where, let's say you're offering bundles of anything. You could sell the bundles like 4 for $18. And then somebody in a sort of pseudo shop of custom choices can just pick the things they want, and you notice that it's not bothering you by saying 000, it just says included. And when they've got what they want, they just go down to an inline checkout, all very elegant. You can design it the way you want. A third example, which is really popular for the sales funnel crowd, the ClickFunnels crowd, right? Hey man, I want to do the step by step, which is really the way I prefer to sell too, because it gives you a complete focus on what you're being offered. Here's the original product. Immediately we get their information, including first name, last name, email, and their payment method, right? So here, let's say I take their payment method. We have an option, you can auto save it instead of manually giving the choice. Now, this takes you not to the thank you, this takes you to an immediate offer, right? It could be an upsell, it could be an order bump, it could be some additional thing. We have any type of offer you want to add to or replace. Here you can take it or not. And when you do, because we've now got your information, guess what happens? It immediately does a one-click checkout. You don't have to ask for their card again. It's just like being on Amazon. None of this is possible with, WooCommerce out of the box. Now here we get to the custom thank you. Here I've shown what they actually just bought, and oh, here's an after order offer where again, yes, I want this. Click, boom, adds it to my order, and then it takes me to my final thank you review page where I see what I just bought, and I can also look and here's what I also previously had. And I can get to my normal, by the way, WooCommerce, beautiful My Account dashboard, which could be further customized to have a billboard of stuff that you're offering or custom look and feel and so forth. So as far as this example, this is one of my favorites. The final one is one I showed in that webinar. This is great for anybody who is doing very simple. I want to onboard somebody automatically with marketing automation to my course or courses. So you offer whatever course or courses you want, say send to checkout, then the same kind of two-step thing if you wish. When they go ahead and pay, it takes them on to a thank you, but in this case, it also has what we call your next step option. So see here, there's a button, which is, I can design it as a button or a link or an image This is programmed so that it automatically knows, because of the product that was bought, to take them to this specific course instead of to another particular course. And so you've got lots of ways that things daisy chain together. And I can show you how this works on the back end. So I'm going to do a little backflow here, because to get back in as the admin, since I just bought as a user. Go a couple steps back.
So I'm just going to chime in with some advantages that I've seen so far. You can install WooCommerce, you can install Lifter LMS, LearnDash, all of these plugins, do it yourself kind of thing, and probably by hand build these types of experiences. Or we just say, let's just fast track it. Let's just get LaunchFlows and do it yourself, and do it with a click of a button kind of thing.
I will say yes and no. Here's what is true. And this is one of the big differences between LaunchFlows and another flows product, I'll just say it, CartFlows. I was originally brought in to help with CartFlows at the marketing level, and with teaching people marketing. I found the product fascinating, but it had some key problems that still exist today, this is why I had to build this plugin. It hijacks the WooCommerce processes and interferes with things. It doesn't work with all the normal gateways or plugins, and it just makes you do 10 times more work to create what they call flows and steps. You have to literally use a whole separate custom post type to sort of map out all these funnels. And I find that sad and ironic, because we already have the ability to use any regular page or even the products themselves as the steps in your flow. In other words, what's the difference? Why not just have a sales page that's a page, or the sales page being the product? And when you go from that page to another page, why not just tell the product to do that, instead of having to have a whole separate thing you have to make for every single product in your inventory? We had some people with like 137 products, of goods. They had to make 137 new flows, each of which was etched in stone. The second thing is, there are certain things I'm going to show you now that are not possible with WooCommerce at all, such as upsell, downsell, cross-sell. You can't do the thing we just showed with WooCommerce. WooCommerce would let you, for example, add other products to the cart and go through that normal 5-step, product grid, product, cart, checkout, notice thing. But you can't do what we just showed, which was go from product to product as an upsell, downsell. And there's a few other tricks like the donation thing and dynamic coupons. These are all available somewhere, someplace as a snippet of code. So you are correct that if you're clever with code, and just like me, if you want to spend the time, you can put together an array of plugins and custom snippets to kind of come close to this functionality. But then I go back to the whole conversation of like, okay, how much time will that take you to do versus just paying $225 or whatever for the plugin? Most people want to run the business, not do coding. So here, this is how it works. LaunchFlows only needs 2 things to work. You make a product, just like a normal WooCommerce product. Here, for example, we have the one that I used for the example for selling access to a course. Let me show you how this works with WP Fusion as well for automation, because this is really clever. You create your product. It's a virtual simple product, $50. For LaunchFlows, we just say, what is the custom checkout page you want this to show up on if we send this to your store? What is the custom thank you page, if any, or the default? Remember, I talked about that custom next step link. So anytime you define a product that maybe is associated with this course or that course or another course, it can have a unique page that you select from a drop-down. You could choose which thing, from your existing course pages or lesson pages it goes to, so that all you need to do is just use the short code, and then you can have just a single thank you page where that button or link will go to the particular associated course for this product. It saves you a lot of time. And then here's some other stuff I was talking about before. You can turn any product into an instant lead magnet. So even if you don't want to sell anything, you just want to onboard users, by using this feature along with WP Fusion, you won't need Gravity Forms. You won't need Contact Form 7. You won't need any other external form, even Elementor, because you'll just use WooCommerce's normal checkout fields that will show up in a very elegant way inside of your design layout. Solo checkout is what we use to make a product only sell by itself. This is when you want to upsell something. So let's say you got a bunch of choices somebody's going to buy, and you say, wait, get the super duper bundle instead. If this product is a solo checkout, it will kick all the other stuff out of the cart for you automatically. Instant sales page is what allows us, like with this product, to not have to bother even making a separate sales page. We can just design it right here on the product with Elementor and be done. Instant branding is if you have affiliates or partners. Let's say they want to send clients to you and you want to give them credit at the checkout. They create a product with their logo, their name as the title. And when this product is associated, you can make their logo, their branding, their title show up on the checkout page as if it was their own personal shopping cart. Hide the free price. I showed that in the second example. Let's say you've got a bunch of fruit that you want to sell inside of a bundle that somebody buys. Well, just make the individual fruit all have hide free price, and that'll instead say something like included or free or whatever you want it to say, instead of $0.0.0. Now for this product, if I want to make it automation capable, I use WP Fusion, and I say that when you buy this, give a product tag. In this case, when I buy this product, it says I can access the course. This tag will be stored on the user profile here and will be synchronized to my favorite CRM, Groundhog, ActiveCampaign, Drip, Infusionsoft, whatever. Locally, inside of the course itself, I use that same tag. This is Lifter. It would be the same with LearnDash. I use that same tag as the thing that will automatically enroll somebody. Let me go one step back and I go here instead. So when I set up my course in WP Fusion tab of either Lifter or LearnDash, we have this option, link with tag, auto enroll. And you'll notice, aha, that tag that somebody just bought with my product, or maybe got for free when they checked out with the product, actually auto enrolls them in the course. And so this can be applied to a lot of other situations, but let me show you the last thing, which is the drag and drop layout. Because the really special thing that LaunchFlows does that nobody else can do is that it makes it possible to drag and drop the individual checkout components. That is to say, instead of just sticking the default WooCommerce checkout screen in the middle of some other decorative stuff, you can decide which things to show and in what way, which again, nobody else does as a product other than predefining them for you. So here we just created a checkout page for various examples. I'll show you a simple one. I'll show you the example one, right? So I'll go to my example one. And by the way, the neat thing about this demo is that anybody who plays with this can modify these templates and save them and download them themselves. So if you want to learn how to do this and you like the product, you don't have to start over. You can just play with these ready done things, modify them, and keep whatever you made as a change. So when we look at the checkout page, this is a normal WooCommerce checkout page, right? It works with any page or post or even lesson or course. When you add WooCommerce checkout shortcode, this tells WooCommerce, hello, I'm a checkout. On the right side, we've already accomplished that. On the next step, this is the fun part. This is what applies your custom design and functionality layout. We have chosen an Elementor template to give that design layout and functionality. If I didn't have that, I could just click here and add a new one. But since I've already chosen it, I'm just going to edit it. And here we'll see how Elementor and LaunchFlows widgets work. There's only two widgets in LaunchFlows. If you type LaunchFlows, you'll see there's our Components widget and our Style Manager. The Style Manager, to get it out of the way, is a way to memorialize any of the settings of look and feel and preference for any of the components you're using so that you can save it and reuse it again and again. So you don't have to keep going in on each and everything to set it up. It's also important because if you save or share or sell your layouts, which is something that's happening now, you can build this stuff for a living. You can be somebody who copies some of your favorite, design ideas and checkout ideas, sell it as a ready-to-go thing for somebody else to purchase from you directly. But with the components, we drag it in place, whatever layout we want, and when you click on it, you just choose which of the actual WooCommerce components you want to show. And the most important are the billing fields, the order review, which is kind of the cart, payment, login, notices that you need to fix something. But we have all the other ones too, right? Discounts, coupons, tax rate, total, anything that's normally displayed on a page in that standard checkout form can now be associated on the page with a widget, which you can drag and drop and move around. But to get that special features like here, this multi-step checkout, all we did here was just drag a standard Elementor tab widget in place. You, again, can't do this with other stuff. And here I'll just do the one I did. I open up each tab and I just use the LaunchFlows reciprocal short code. So instead of the widget, I just used the matching thing for billing. And then I also made a couple custom buttons. And the custom buttons give you the ability in line to kind of click the next tab instead of actually clicking the tab header itself. And that's it. So you save this. And then if you wanted to export it, you can save it as a template and it's ready to go. So that is kind of the full Monty of what's happening. Let's see if you're still there.
Yeah,
okay.
you're still, yep, you're still connected.
Right,
yep.
good.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I could probably ask another hour worth of questions, but I think it's a fantastic piece of software, and it does make it, dead simple. Where can folks get to that demo one more time? They go to launchflows.com.
Chat, but just go to launchflows.com. And at the very top, it says 7-day free trial, or the actual URL, in case you want to put it in your notes, is launchflows.com demo-launcher. And I encourage you to use the actual email. I don't spam anybody, but definitely it's going to send you credentials. And also what's going to happen too is that we have various ways to get the product at a discount. So the normal retail is $300, but it's a 7-day free trial. I'm very liberal with refund policy. So it's 30 days, no questions asked. As you know, and that's why I'm here, my whole biography is about teaching people for free and helping people for free. So you can set up a free call with me, etc. There's virtually no reason not to give it a shot, because if you have even the slightest pain point, the combination of LaunchFlows, the free Elementor, the free WooCommerce, I would love you to buy WP Fusion, but even starting with WP Fusion Lite, and then something like either LearnDash or the free Lifter LMS, and then use a CRM like the free Groundhog to start. Like you have free, and you can try LaunchFlows and then get it for a discount price for less than 1 month of ClickFunnels. You'll have something that I guarantee you can do more, and you'll own it and control it. And I want to throw one thing in too. This question gets asked a lot. Does LaunchFlows work with any page builder or theme? The answer technically is yes. And I know you especially are very particular about your page builder preferences, right? So here's the skinny on it. When I built LaunchFlows, it starts and it still has all the direct short codes you can use. So you can pop short codes in to do the layouts. It became clear to me that there's going to be 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 or 100 page builders very soon. I couldn't build an interface that was like widgets for 100 different things. So what I chose to do is say, look, Elementor's ahead. It has 5 million plus users. It's got this really powerful ability working with WP Fusion, working with the WooCommerce to just do this. So the drag and drop widgets are on Elementor. Here's what I tell people. Use your favorite page builder or theme for designing your whole site. Put in the free Elementor plugin just to do that one thing I showed you, just to drag and drop the widgets, and that's it. It will not change the speed. It will make your life easy, and you will love that with no training at all. If you insist on using your own page builder natively, fine. Just put the shortcodes into your little text widgets or your shortcode widgets and enjoy it. But it just requires you to like refer back to the shortcode, library a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand why. Or I understand the intricacies and the difficulties of supporting, various page builders or even like e-commerce platforms, right? I mean, when you're integrating with Lifter and WooCommerce and WordPress itself to the degree that you were, with different settings or different options tabs and within, let's say, WooCommerce, you have to keep supporting that, right? In other words, you have to keep track of what Chris is doing with Lifter, and if he ever changes that user interface, well, now you have to change that user interface. You have to follow all of these different authors and pieces of software out there. Maybe it works because they sell a lot, but I remember my days of when we first started my second plugin, Conductor. That was the biggest challenge and downfall, was that we were trying to support way too many different plugins at once, and then they were all moving in different directions super fast, and we couldn't keep up with.
it's too much effort for a one-man, two-man shop.
Yeah, it's just impossible. So I totally get it. We do have a couple questions, and I suspect that we'll have questions after the live stream because some people joined later. Dari asks if there's any MailPoet integration.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's come up on your radar.
A great question. Hi, Dari. The neat thing about it, and this is what's interesting too, and I love what you just said, by the way, Matt, because I know you, having been an author and also an advocate for various ways of doing things, that what's interesting about Elementor here is that Elementor is not any different than many of the others, except the next thing we're doing now with LaunchFlows is where the people using the product, as well as some other professional partnerships I'll be announcing very soon, will be creating the end result. So this is important, and I will answer Dari's thing. There will be very soon virtually an unlimited number of ready-to-go Elementor stuff. Like you already know in Envato, they've released the entire Elementor template library, which I argue in many of those shows I'm on with you, that makes regular templates or themes obsolete. If you go the route of at least having Elementor for these layouts, you immediately get the benefit of just taking anything ready to go and using it and just changing some images versus like, oh, I got to use Beaver Builder. Well, okay, fine. Start from scratch because there won't be anybody making these things in Beaver Builder. But in Elementor, there will. Okay, so the thing that's neat with Dari's question is that MailPoet works perfectly fine. It will work with anything that you use for any WordPress site or any WooCommerce plugin. But in this case, MailPoet is an outstanding integration through WP Fusion. So if you have MailPoet with WP Fusion and you're exploring automation, you'll also be able to do that kind of advanced feature stuff like I just showed with the onboarding. If you are on the fence and you don't know which CRM to use, MailPoet's a great choice. I always recommend people check out Groundhog, which is Adrian Toby's plugin, because it's unique. It's in WordPress. You don't even need a third-party service other than your SMTP. So yeah, absolutely.
Andreas asks, I only use EDD at the moment. Was just curious on how LaunchFlow works.
Yeah, I love StreamYard, by the way. This is the stuff you're doing now is so cool with StreamYard. I love this. The sad thing I have to say is that unfortunately it is exclusive to WooCommerce. And the reason for that is because, and I also have some other sad news too about EDD when it comes to upsells, downsell, cross-sells. WooCommerce is very specific about how these transactional things happen. That is not one of the generic like style or other issues. So yeah, it's unfortunately limited only to WooCommerce. Elementor's optional, WooCommerce is not. EDD, to my knowledge, again, incredible plugin. Love everything that Pippin has done. He's one of the people that I really admire and have followed since the beginning. Built an amazing business, and now he's off doing other stuff because he's got a team. EDD, to my knowledge, does not allow the kind of diverse add-ons that you get in the WooCommerce world, including even anything remotely close to upsell, downsell, cross-sell, and so forth. So those features would only be available if you did WooCommerce.
His name is Spencer Forman. You can find him at WPLaunchify.com, LaunchFlows.com. You can book a call with him for either of those products. Don't just book a call with him to chat. Man's busy. the man's busy. He's not here for life advice.
The chat are fine. If you want to chat for 5 minutes, say hi. I'm also available in the Facebook groups too. So, interestingly enough, a lot of action happens there at LaunchFlow. Facebook.com/groups/LaunchFlows.
Awesome.
Terry had one quick question about he had concerns with Elementor security or Gutenberg. It does work with Gutenberg, yes. So in other words, as I was just trying to, it's hard to describe something that's visual, but if you wanted, you could use LaunchFlows and WooCommerce with any page builder you want. But if it's not Elementor, you'll just have to rely on using the shortcodes for each of the components that you want to put in the layout. Gutenberg, ironically, is actually pretty good about not messing with the CSS. I will tell you the Divi is the worst violator. If you put the same thing, and I did a video of this a couple of weeks back, if you put the same shortcode in the 5 popular page builders, Divi messes it up horribly with its own CSS. Brizzy gets confused, doesn't know what to do. Beaver Builder's fine, it's just a little plain Jane. Gutenberg is pretty much exactly as it should be. So there's a certain irony there, but it works.
There you go. Spencer, thanks for taking some time out of your day to show the channel everything about LaunchFlows and a little bit more about you. Again, where can folks find you to say thanks?
Yeah. Well, you can email me directly at help@launchflows.com or help@wplaunchify.com, or either of those two websites is terrific. And Matt, I mean, it was a real pleasure. I love that I'm finally getting to be with you on your show. I've been a big fan and listener for a long time.
I appreciate you taking the time, Spencer. Everybody else is plugintut.com, plugintut.com/subscribe to join that mailing list. It's the #1 way to stay connected. Thumbs up if you like the video, subscribe if you want